Hello viewers of Super GT here, welcome to the final round of 8 of the V8 Supercars Championship. So we are here in Bathurst, the real home of the V8 Supercars, and I'm hoping to try and nab 4th position in the championship. I'm currently 5th, 2 points behind Phil, so that is the main aim of this race, to try and catch up with him and overturn that gap. Now, this is qualifying. You're probably wondering why is it only 2 laps and why have you shown me the first lap. Well, it's a very interesting story actually, because the first qualifying we did, the proper qualifying, the 5 laps like we usually do, that went smoothly, but then at the start of the race, the 2 people who didn't qualify, 2 guys didn't qualify, I don't know why, they started pole position and second for some reason. They should have been at the back, but they started pole position in second, so we backed out of that, and it was decided that we were going to do a 2-lap qualifying instead, just to replace it, because we could have done a 5-lap again, but we didn't want to make the night drag on too much. This is actually my fastest lap. The fastest lap was by rolling up lap, or the out lap if you like, from a standing start, because the second lap I did out of the 2 was a dirty lap. It's so hard to get a clean lap around here. As you can see, there's walls everywhere, and there's a very high chance that you're going to hit one of them throughout the lap. So I thought on this first lap I will just go very carefully, make sure I don't hit a wall, just get a banker lap in, a clean lap, see where that puts me, and then the second lap I would push a bit more, but unfortunately I did clip a wall, which which meant that lap didn't count, so which put me a bit further back than I would have liked. Although in the first qualifying, the proper one, I did qualify 11th, and in this one I qualified 11th as well. So we're going to come round into the final turn here, turn number 23, so it's a very long lap here, just over 2 minutes. And we're going to cross the line in 3rd as it stands, but at the end of the qualifying it was 11th, as we're going to see here. So Sam on pole position, I'm in 11th, Fizzy in front of me, Phil, my title rival, not title, championship rival should we say, 4th, up in 4th. So we're going to move to the start here. Hopefully I don't stall. I have stalled twice out of 7 races so far this season, and off the line I don't stall, that's good news. And behind, I think the guy there did stall. And looking into turn 1, there is a gap here between Octane and Fizzy. I'll go through the gap and gain Fizzy's position into the top 10. I was hoping to qualify around 7th or 8th, so if I can get up to that kind of position quite quickly, then not as much harm is done as what it should have been. So coming into turn number 2, up the inside of Urbans, he braked quite early there and gives me 9th position quite easily. Looking at the back of Rumbum in the Xbox Ford, who's behind T6 Bullet in the Volvo. Looking around the outside into turns 3 and 4, he goes very deep, and somehow we don't make contact with the wall. This gives me the inside line for the next corner. Cut across him just there, he does let me in, so that's back up into 8th position. So not too bad actually, 3 positions gained in 1 minute of the race so far, so that's pretty good going. Go a little bit too fast through there and have to back out slightly. So we've got T6 Bullet ahead of us, and ahead of him in the Nissan we have Shadow Demon, who's been very quick in this championship. So through the S's here, very tricky to get right. You really have to get very close to the walls if you want to make a lot of time up in this section. And into the dipper, the famous dipper hairpin, going as close as you can to that wall on the exit to maximise your speed onto the Conrod straight, which leads up to the chase. Turns number 20, 21 and 22. So turn 20 is coming up here. It's a fast right hand kink, and then you're going to brake on the shadow as you enter turn 21, the chase. So we're going to brake about here on the edge of that shadow, just about going to T6 Bullet, and thankfully it wasn't too much contact and you managed to control it. Didn't want to take him out this early in the race. Obviously that would mean I would have to slow down for him, and we'd both lose a lot of positions if that had happened. So thankfully it wasn't any worse than it was there. So over the line onto lap 2. We're going to skip here towards the end of lap 2, and what we see ahead of us is Troy in the Ford. He's going to go wide here because he's got damage. He originally qualified very high up on the grid, so unfortunate for him that he's got damage, though he can bail into the pits. Now this is where I can talk about the fuel strategy, because my car here can do 13 laps, meaning I can pit anywhere from lap 4 onwards, so which means I could do a 2-stop strategy. Everyone's going to do a 2-stop strategy apart from those who had damage. So Troy was going to be on a 3-stopper, but the majority of us were going to be on a 2-stop. Most of the other cars could do 14 laps, so for them they could go 1 lap longer if they had to, but they still would have had to do 2 stops. Now by lap 4 I was actually a lot closer to T6 Bullet. It took me a while to catch back up to him after having a couple of scruffy laps. So coming into the chase, I'm going to get very close to him here, holding back on the throttle even as we go through the kink, and I look up the inside. I go a little bit too deep, still get the corner done, and somehow he managed to avoid me there. Very good driving from T6 Bullet. He's got the inside line now for the final turn, and going into the final turn, getting on the brakes nice and early, thinking about doing a cutback, but he covers it quite well, and it's not on there. So I'm still in 7th position as we cross the line onto lap number 5. So we're going to fast forward here to lap number 7, and as you can see, T6 Bullet has got a bit of a gap there, but he goes wide coming into the S's. A very tricky corner that one to get right. You have to be very committed very early, almost before you can see the apex, and he goes very wide on the exit. That got me 6th position. Now before that overtake, I was actually predicting that Bullet was going to make a mistake. I was watching him for a couple of laps. He didn't seem quite there throughout the whole lap, so I was going to be quite patient and hopefully wait for him to make a mistake, and indeed he did. And again, I think he made another one there through the dipper hairpin. And going through into lap number 11, this is my first pit stop, and that is Shadow Demon ahead of me there. I was actually catching up with him quite nicely towards the end of that stint. He was a good 1,000 feet ahead of me or more for a while, but then I managed to reduce that to about 200-300 feet. As you see here, about 300 feet at the moment, which would go up as he accelerates away quicker up this straight. So of course the gap is always going to fluctuate throughout the lap depending on where you are, but on the most part it was between about 200 to 500 feet, which was really about as close as I got for a lot of the race. This is lap number 12 now, so we're approaching about a third, or more than a third, approaching halfway through the race. So I can go anywhere from now up to lap 25 on this stint, or I could pit on lap 17, at the end of 17 until the end of 25. That is my window. Anywhere between those laps I could pit. The best thing to do normally is to wait, just in case you get damage, and then you're not going to have to pit twice, or twice instead of once during that part of the race. So that is the benefit of waiting, but then if you do wait, it does take slightly longer to refuel your car, because your fuel gauge will be slightly lower, meaning you'll have to put in slightly more fuel to get back to 100%. So coming through the final turn back onto the back straight here at Bathurst, you can see there Shadow Demon getting away slightly. Now this is the end of lap 15. That is Kerry going to the pit lane there. And that is quite significant, because that means he's going to have to do a 3-stop race. He suffered some damage going through the chase, and that is actually very important, because that means there's a possible position I could gain from him. Normally he would always finish ahead of me, but this gives me an opportunity to gain another position. So I'm still in 5th here. We catch up with some back markers. I've lost a little bit of time to Shadow Demon at this point, and I'm going to lose a lot more here because I go wide into the wall whilst trying to take Colossum there. He did leave me the space, but I sort of just misjudged it. Now coming into the S's, it's going to be very, very hard to get past a back marker through this section. It's very, very tricky, even to do it on your own, let alone with other people next to you. So coming through the big dip there, he's actually going to pull off to the side here, so that's good from him. Going into the dipper hairpin. Got to get this one really good, and that's Regimus going off, pulling off to the side there. He actually retired there because of extensive damage. He was more than a lap down from the leader. He had damage and had an extra pit stop to do, so didn't feel like continuing from there on in, and that grants me a lot of clear track ahead of me. So this is lap 21 now. A couple of guys have started to go into the pit lane. So that is Shadow Demon actually I've passed in the pit lane. And through here, through turn 1, I'm going to go past Sam, who was the original pole sitter and race leader at the start of the race. He made a mistake going into the pit lane on his first stint, which granted Shuffle the lead. And I'm going to do the same here and win Idiot of the Year award 2016 by going very wide into the pit lane. Absolutely stupid schoolboy error. And that's going to cost me quite severely, as we're going to see here, because Shadow Demon there is about 700 feet ahead. Now I predict that I would have been ahead of him had I not made that mistake, or at least it would have been very close. Now I've got the additional problem here of having Troy right behind me in the Ford, which has very good speed down the straight, so it's going to be very hard to keep him behind for the next 7 laps. He does look up the inside. I brake ever slightly too late, and luckily glance off the tyre wall. I was thinking I was going to hit the tyre wall and spin around, which normally happens, but luckily I glanced off the wall, just about getting the car slowed down enough to make sure I don't go in too quickly into that wall. So this is lap 27, we're getting very close to the end here, and I actually managed to keep with Troy for 4 or 5 laps there. T6 Bullet behind me, who had a bit of inconsistencies towards the start of the race, has actually managed to catch up towards the end of the race here. He did drop back though in the last lap or so. So coming through turns number 7, 8 and 9 here, I actually think my proximity to Troy made him make a mistake. He goes a little bit too deep into that one, which grants me the line into turn 10. So I'm back up into 6th position as it stands here, into the yeses now. You've got to really commit onto the curbs here, get as close as you can to the walls. The undulations here mean you have to sort of turn in a lot earlier than you think, then the car will eventually grip at the right moment. So you've got to really turn in quite a lot earlier than you think through there to really get the best lap time through here. My best lap time in practice was about 2:08.3, and in this race I actually managed a 2:07, which is fairly good. The fastest guys in the race were doing mid 2:06s, so I was still quite a long way off, but lapping consistently in the 2:08s and 2:07s meant I was always going to be quite high up the order. So this is Kerry here, going in for his 3rd stop, and I'm just about going to get past him, and that is significant here because we're going to run until the end of the race here without cutting away, because this is going to get very interesting. We've got a lap and 3/4 left. So can I keep the champion in waiting behind me for a lap and a half? So Kerry's been very dominant in this championship, winning 4 or 5 races in a row. For a while here, it did look like Sam was actually going to nab the championship from him, because of Kerry's unfortunate damage early in this race. It was possible for Sam to actually overhaul Kerry and win the championship. But Kerry did actually do a very good job to get back into the major points playing positions. So through the S's here, this is going to be where I know that I lose time through here, because I'm not quite as committed to the walls as the top runners as Kerry is. So through here, I was originally about 100 feet ahead just before, but now I'm only 20 feet ahead, which I know is right behind me. Going into the hairpin, I go a little bit too narrow, graze the wall on the inside, and it's going to be very interesting to see who can stay ahead coming into the chase chicane at the end of the lap. So I'm going to go to the left here, make my one defensive move, cover the left hand side. I want the inside for the chase chicane. I know I will have the outside for the kink here, but so going through the kink I have the outside, but then on the inside now for the chase chicane. Managing to stay ahead here as we approach the final turn. I have a quick look behind, and he is still right there, so I've got to cover the inside and get on the brakes nice and early, make sure I don't overshoot. I'm going to park it on the apex so he can't do a cutback. Just about do that successfully. Going into turn 1, I don't think he's going to go for a lunge here, so I'm going to go and take the normal racing line, and hopefully this can give me a good run up the straight, up into turn number 2. So I have got a decent line through there. Constantly monitoring the gap at the moment. Is he going to be able to get enough speed into turn 2? I'm watching the feet board on the left. He's 30 feet behind. I deem that he's just about too far behind and isn't going to go for a lunge. So I'll take the normal racing line through turn 2, coming up into turn 3 and 4. Not really a good overtaking opportunity here. So I'm just going to take the normal racing line. Don't think he's going to go for a lunge up there. Looking at the feet again on the left, he's gone over 100 feet behind, so he made a bit of a mistake there, I think. I'm not sure exactly how. But that gives me a bit of breathing space, but I know they're going through the S's. He's going to catch up again. And going into the chase chicane is going to be very interesting once again. So through this section, I've got this quite consistent throughout the race. It's just this section here which is so hard to get right consistently. You can gain and lose so much time if you get this one wrong, and I do get it wrong slightly, and as you can see, his car is poking up the bottom of my screen there, so he is less than 40 feet behind, which again I know is right behind me. I get very close to the apex on the dipper hairpin, and as we approach the Conrod straight for the final time, it's going to be very close as we go into the chase chicane. So he is right there, he's on my screen, that is how close it is. I've got to the left hand side once again, my preferred option going into the chicane, having the inside line. He's going to get a bit of a better run, he's going to go up the outside, but again I've got the inside, park it on the apex so he can't do a cutback once again, and it's going to be the same story as we go into the final turn. He is still right behind me, but I'm going to go semi-defensive here. I go a little bit too deep, and on the exit I get a bit of wheel spin, and then he's going to go to the inside. I'm going to force him to the wall as we approach the line, and I'm just about going to keep 5th position by 0.013 of a second. Just about managing to keep him behind. If that was a lap longer, I don't think I would have done it. But that was a pleasing result in the end. 5th position from 11th on the grid. Made up a couple of positions on lap 1. Up into 8th, got past T6 Bullet. Troy come back at me for a portion of the race there, had a good race with him for 5 or 6 laps or so, and then a very good race at the end there with Kerry, who would be disappointed to finish 6th but does win the championship. So got to say, very good driving from him throughout the whole season. Very dominant driving with 4 or 5 wins in a row I think there throughout the middle of the season. So that's going to wrap it up from me from this season. I hope you can join me for the next season, which begins in approximately 2 weeks, should be 2 weeks time. So no race next week. I might do an open lobby. If you do want an open lobby, make sure you let me know, and I might host one next Thursday. So yeah, the next season is going to be V8 Supercars once again, probably 10 rounds this time instead of 8, which would make it more interesting. A couple of different tracks as well for variety. If you want to sign up, check out the links in the description, and head over to the AOR website where you can have a read of the rules when they do come out, see if you want to join. The racing is very close, but you do have to be very quick to stand a chance of getting any points in this league, because the drivers are very good in this league. So if you do want to consider joining, you might want to consider practicing as well, because you really do have to be quite committed if you want to be right at the front in this league. So that's going to wrap it up from me. I hope you have enjoyed this race and indeed the whole series. Subscribe if you want to see more of the same from now onwards. Hit the like button if you did like this video, and I hope to see you next time. Thank you very much for watching. Goodbye.